Oh, I'm very excited to be here. This is pretty long. I'll do my best to read it quickly. Abraham, my goal is to reverse my aging process to 20-something and to remain there for my entire lifespan. Therefore, when I am 80-something, I will look, feel, and be 20-something without having any work done or hair dye.
Let's start with the vibrational essence of your request. So,
Okay.
as we listen to people talk about what they want, we've noticed that without exception, every single time, everything that everyone wants is because they feel they will feel better in the having of it. So, whenever you know what you do want, you know really clearly what you don't want.
Okay.
In other words, it's just, there are always two ends of the stick.
Right.
So when someone says, I want to bring my body to what I've considered to be my peak experience, physical experience. Do you remember when you were 23?
Yes, I do.
So is that where you want it to be?
And I want to tell a new story.
Oh, it's interesting the emphasis that you put upon how you hate that, which really makes a statement of the strongest story that you are telling.
Okay.
In other words, you're really telling a strong story, a much stronger story of what you don't want than of what you do want. Now, that's all right. It almost always starts that way. So then you say, I know what I do want. I want to find, achieve, and maintain for all of my life the physical vitality and appearance of my 27, 23
Yes.
year old body.
Yes.
And then, as we feel the vibration of that, we say to you, then you have to find the vibrational equivalent of that. And what we notice as we hear it, and not just with you, but every time, the reason that someone is asking for that is because they're standing outside the vortex, believing that if they could have that, then they would get in the vortex. That's the thing that makes it so that it doesn't happen. In other words, people say, if I could have that, then I would be happy. And what we're saying to you is, what you want is to be happy. This is the easiest way of explaining this to you. Before you came into this physical body, you were non-physical energy, and you had a vivid understanding of what life in this physical time-place reality would be like. Okay. You knew that contrast would cause a constant expansion, and you knew that in order to live the joyful life that you wanted to live, it wouldn't require that you hold your body in some unnatural place that no organism or energy anywhere in the universe, in other words, nothing stands still like that.
But why not? If I desire it, it's possible. That's what I think.
You're right. As a people, as a species, there isn't anything that you can't achieve if this time-space reality gives you the desire to do it. But you have to factor out what the majority of your vibration is causing you to vibrate and get in the vortex and become a perfect match to your dream. And you can't stand in the current reality and hate or even dislike or even be annoyed at the way most people are approaching the subject and be a match to what's in there. In other words, you've got to disregard what everybody else is doing.
So it's my story, period.
It's your story. And
right.
So what this question really is about is, how can I keep my story from being so blended with their stories? And what happens is, so many people are looking for facts. They're looking for a basis of communication and understanding. And so you want that cooperative association with your human race in order to establish your bouncing off place. But at any point, you can strike an absolute independence from whatever the expectations have been, and you can form a partnership with where you are going. You can be vital and alive and feel and look the way you want to look. If it's an intention that you set forth.
Okay, for my entire lifespan, that's possible, right? If I'm in the escrow.
If there is an intention that you've put in the escrow, and let's say you put it there over several conversations over maybe a span of many years. Once it's there, and you find vibrational alignment with it, the manifestation must match the vibration. The manifestation always is an indication of the vibration.
Okay.
So then the next question usually is, well, there aren't that many people doing it. And we say, because most people don't believe it, they don't expect it, they're not focused into it, or they don't want it, or, and this is the part that we started to go to, and you felt a lot of resistance well up within you, which will keep you from what you want, but you felt a lot of resistance well up on this point when we started to say, from the non-physical vantage point, you like the idea of coming into this experience and evolving through the experience because you understand the richness of the evolution and what it puts there. In other words, there is a cycle of life that has found to be pleasurable by all species on the planet. And that's not to say that you can't find something and some reason to want something more than that, but you can't do it from a lackful place. That's the thing that we most want you to hear. If the reason that you want something is because you don't like the alternative, that's not a pure vibration and it won't get you there. So you have to find a way of getting into the evolving, expanding resiliency of the cells of your body, and of course you can achieve it. Your body is new constantly. You are rebuilding cells all the time, but your cells are mimicking the cells that were there just before they replaced them. In other words, it's going to take focus to guide your body in a different way. Did that make sense to you? And you can't get there from mostly knowing what you don't want. You've got to really get into the rich essence of what you want and why you want it. And if you're able to get in there without defying what you intended as you came forth to begin with, you'll have an experience that will be unique, that will be a touchstone and a new experience that generations that follow you will look to.
And evolution with my being can happen without aging, correct? I mean, I understand that the intention of the non-physical source before I came forth was I wanted to evolve and experience new things, but
Yes.
that doesn't have to include physical aging,
It doesn't.
correct?
It does not have to. You
Okay.
can pass through time without declining. But the magic recipe that you're looking for, and it is as simple as this, you just have to find the pure essence of what you're reaching for without constantly beating the drum of not wanting the negative alternative.
Right.
That's the thing that has to be done. You have to find the pure essence of why you want it. In other words, I want to be youthful. Well, youthful in and of itself smacks of an annoyance at aging. And so even the word youthful isn't pure. I want to stay healthy. Well, the other end of that is I don't want to be sick, and that smacks of that. In other words, you'd be better to get off the subject altogether and say, I am a lover of life, and I am so deliciously focused in this and love the expansive quality of my being, and I intend to do something that almost nobody does. Now hear this. This ties in so dramatically with the conversation that we had in the first part of the day, where we were having a discussion with Jerry about why first-time experiences often give you such elation, and then later the second and third don't. And our answer to him and to all of you is because most people don't keep themselves sharply focused into delicious expansion. Most people settle back into wanting what they're observing to be the basis of what makes them feel good. So if you are like almost every person on the planet, and the majority of your vibration, which is the basis of your creation and attraction, it's your point of attraction, if the majority of your thought and vibration and a point of attraction therefore are about what is, then you're not focusing yourself sharply back into that new and improved and better feeling body. Can you hear what we're getting at here? This is so big. Most people offer most of their vibration in response to what they're observing. So they observe a first-time experience and they have a high. We're saying, of course, observe the first-time experience and have a high. Then get hooked on the high and examine what the components of the high are and learn to focus yourself into highs and highs and highs, or alignment, alignment, alignment. In other words, if you can stay focused into the alignment with who you are, if this time-space reality would continue to give you contrast, which would continue to cause you to expand, which would continue to cause you to reach and to come up to speed with who you've become, you could remain vital and alive and feeling and looking the way you want to in this body indefinitely. So why doesn't that happen with most people? Because you don't focus. Because you want your environment to give you the reason to feel good rather than getting into the vortex because that's where you feel good. So now here's a big question. If I, Abraham, we'll ask it from your point of view, if I train myself into the vortex consistently, so I feel really, really, really good, if I'm consistently, you're really going to like this, if I'm consistently in the vortex, from inside the vortex, is there enough contrast to keep me asking and therefore in this body? Those of you who have been with us for a while, that was the most leading edge question you'll hear this decade. If I'm in the vortex mostly, and therefore not having very many step one experiences, will I stay in this body for a really long time? Will ya? But Abraham, if I go out and have step one experiences, and I keep launching rockets forward, then, in other words, could it be that the intention of my broader perspective is to have briefer, shorter experiences, and we say, doesn't have to be that way, but through all of the life you've been living, you've found it to be the most poignant, delicious way of experiencing it. To come forth, fresh start, clean slate, no resistance, learn new stuff, launch new rockets, get into the vortex. Your goal is happiness. Your goal is happiness. So let's conclude this by saying to you that, yes, you have the wherewithal of keeping yourself excited enough about life. That's really the question, isn't it? In other words, what keeps a person in this physical body? Asking and little resistance. Continuing to ask and little resistance. So how that would play out in the context of what we've been talking about here is you would bounce out of the vortex frequently, have a contrasting step one experience, which would launch your rocket forward, and then you'd do the work of getting right back into the vortex. In other words, that's the recipe for longer, resilient, good-feeling life experience. And think about it. People who are out of the vortex all the time, they're not having much joy, and so their lives don't go on and on and on. And people who chronically stay in the vortex aren't asking, and so most of the death experiences happen because someone got too far from who they really are and then did get run over by a truck, or ravaged by a disease, or someone who was so in alignment that they weren't asking more from this time-space reality, and so they reemerge into non-physical. That is the best description of what is the majority of the reason that people have what you call the death experience that we've ever given. Either too far away, or so in alignment that the next logical decision is to reemerge into non-physical. So what you're saying is, I'd like to consider a third option. I'd like to be so in tune that I'm soaring and therefore maintaining my well-being.
Yes.
But willing to step out into a step one experience briefly enough that I keep asking with the knowledge of how to get back into alignment quickly. And that's really what the art of allowing has been teaching in all of these years. There is nothing that you cannot be or do or have. There is no exception. If this time-space reality gives you the desire, this time-space reality can deliver the goods. But you've got to play the game according to the laws of the universe.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you.
That was meaty.
So everything's going just fine from your perspective?
Everything is what we would call perfect from our perspective, and we are looking forward to much more of the same.
Thank you.
To the back, then we'll come.
That came to mind for me was that if you're letting this positive energy flow fully, can you choose to remain in your body here on Earth for as long as you need to do your work?
Yes.
And suspend the aging process and all of that. That's what I'm wondering about.
You cannot suspend the aging process because you're in a time-space reality. You can suspend the declining process. In other words, you can't stop getting older, but you can stop getting decrepit.
And then, I mean, the natural extension to that is then then you don't necessarily have to die if you're...
Theoretically, it is true, but when you understand that those intentions are launched from non-physical, not physical. In other words, a physical being says that usually with a guarded, I don't want to die attitude. If you were physically focused and exuberant about life and able to continue to find objects of attention through which the energy would flow, to which it would flow through you, you could remain eternally in this physical body. But we don't see you able to hold yourself in that place of excited adventure. In other words, it's like every now and again we'll talk to a physical friend who will say, Abraham, I have had it with physical experience. I'm not going to do it again. So you tell anybody that needs to know that this is my last physical incarnation, I'm not coming back. And we always say, we will carry your message. But then we always say, however, those decisions are not made by you from this physical perspective. Those decisions are made by you from your non-physical perspective. And from what we know of you, as soon as you reemerge into non-physical, you want to be right back. In other words, those decisions are made from your broader non-physical, non-resistant being.
It's kind of like Esther after a big meal. She'll always say, I'll never, ever eat again. That's it. That was my last meal. But that isn't long before she said, I think we should eat something.
It is a good analogy. It is a temporary decision.
I guess you lost me after you said, we don't see you as being able to hold that thought, or hold that, because isn't that...
No, what it means is your intent from non-physical was to come forth and have a powerful, poignant, exciting, adventurous flowing of energy. And then a regrouping of non-physical and reclaiming your intention and then coming forth and doing it again. From the non-physical realm, you don't say, I'm going to go forth and bang around until I get it right. In other words, that's man's lackful perspective, you see. The truth of it is, if you can stay excited about life, you will continue to live. Mm-hmm. You see.
So in the biblical masters, it's written that they've lived for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, so they were able to do that.
There are a number of reasons for that. Part of it, they were living longer. Part of it, they were counting time differently. Part of it, they were talking about other dimensional lives. In other words, it would be like Abraham sitting here describing to you all that we are, and then you writing it down and describing Abraham as if we are a physical being when we are describing from non-physical perspective. In other words, it's hard for you to regurgitate this stuff that was written 2,000 years ago and buried for most of that and dig it up and make sense of it today. In other words, you take things more literally in your time as you try to interpret them through your time. There is tremendous distortion. And that's why we don't encourage you. You see, so often as we visit with our physical friends, we feel you trying to take all the stuff you've learned all your life and trying to wedge it all together and make it all come out as one truth. And we say, everything does not fit together. In other words, there are lots of things that are not in vibrational harmony with your broader knowing. You knew it the first time you heard it. In other words, you can feel it in your emotional center. You can feel that which is in vibrational harmony with your knowing, and you can feel that which is not. And so the first time somebody says to you, you're not worthy and you've got to earn your worthiness, you knew that was wrong. You got a negative feeling in your stomach that let you know that that was not right, you see. And most people who are saying, I want to ascend, have got that same negative feeling in their stomach. They are pushing against something, you see. And when you are joyously living life, feeling the freedom of the energy flowing through you, you're not talking about when it's going to end. You're living in the now. You're not talking about how you got here. You're living in the now. You're not worried about what's coming next. You're living in the now. You're not worried about where you go from here. You're not worried about what the afterlife is about. You're not even worried about what's going to happen to this body. The sharks could eat it and do very well. And nobody cares, because that's not who you are, you see. When you are vibrationally in harmony with who you are, almost all of these things that you chew on and worry about and talk about in workshops don't matter at all, because they have nothing to do with who you are. They are man's spin-off of guardedness. That's what they are.
Abraham, this morning I was talking to Esther, and I said, how long have we known each other? She said, 18 years. And I said, that's interesting, because I had just looked at myself in the mirror, and I said, you know, that first year, from the time we're born till we're 18, I said, we have such dramatic changes of the way we look. but nobody gets too upset about it. And then from 18, the next 18 years to 36, people don't give much thought to the changes. And then the next 18 years, people don't give much. But then they start really talking about their bodies changing. You hear about this and that and the other, changes. There's a point that it's all positive change. And then there's a point that people start looking at physical change as negative. Whereas in reality, it's all positive change, isn't it?
Absolutely.
There is no negative change to our bodies in the natural change.
Most people view most change as negative. In other words, every time you feel a little different sensation in your body, most of you don't say, I wonder how I'm evolving today. Most of you say, what's wrong? I wonder what's wrong.
That starts later, though, I think, in life. Maybe it starts early. Oh, the other thing, I said to Esther, this morning, I guess it seems like I've done every wonderful possible thing that a human can do on this earth in this lifetime, and I've done most of the terrible things too, and there's not much left new for me to... In other words, we looked at it Key West, and I remember you were saying how it brought tears to my eyes that time when Esther and I were here off that cruise ship. It was just so beautiful, and then now I come here, it's beautiful, but it doesn't overwhelm me like that first time. And I was saying to Esther, I said, we can't seem to repeat our first spectacular experience. We have to keep having new spectacular experiences, because the same thing over and over again isn't spectacular to me the second time.
Or contrast. In other words, it's like our friends talking about this energy, and we're saying as you allow contrast, you can have, in other words, that's why you keep reaching for those feelings of contrast.
Yes. And so I told Esther, I said, so where am I going to go from here? It's like I've done everything, been everywhere, had everything, it's like... And I said, maybe I'll revert to the joy of just watching a flower come into bloom, or watch a baby bird taking its first flight. Maybe I'll just find the same spectacular joy in just a piece. Or Esther says, or you get so excited about a baby cedar tree popping up out of the ground. And, you make a big deal of it. I said, well, maybe that's the way the rest of my life will be. I'll find joy in that kind of thing, and these kind of things won't...
Or maybe you'll find joy in leading other people to that joy. Maybe you'll find something new to flow your energy to that you can't now perceive. In other words, maybe you'll say, I want to know more clearly what I want. I'm seeking new levels of understanding of how I can allow the power to flow through me into this physical time and place. I will be a catalyst to assist more people in this world in understanding the joy that I feel. In other words, rather than having the experience for myself and basking in it, I will visualize more people within the experience and see them basking in it. Maybe I will become a broader creator and allow my vortex to open to include the experience of more people. Or maybe I'll croak because I can't think of anything else.
Because that happens, because I've had this goal for years to live to be 120 years of age in feeling wonderful and feeling happy. But then as I move out in life, I keep thinking, what am I going to be excited about, 40 years from now? I mean, what will there be left, to find any enthusiasm? But when you've done everything and done it all. But
envision a physical environment where large segments of the population, rather than minuscule segments of the population, are coming to understand their value. Imagine a physical world where so many more people are understanding the perfect balance, and instead of feeling competition and unworthiness in the paltry part that they offer, they are feeling proud of what they offer and are excited about the upliftment of others for the purpose of the whole. Imagine a population that is not so singularly focused upon joy, but mutually focused upon joy, feeling the radiant expansion of the spirit of so many. Imagine the joy you feel as you envision something beautiful, and imagine masses feeling it simultaneously, and feel the chorus go to the heavens as millions are acknowledging that all really is well. Imagine looking at the face of a child and seeing that child utterly free and unafraid, and being able to say to that child, all is well, and know that that child is not going to meet with constant resistance to that statement every day of his life. In other words, imagine the children running through the streets again, playing with one another, feeling the freedom of being together, and feeling the deliciousness of feeling safe. In other words, you have lots to do.
Can we still do that?
Absolutely.
We can still do that on this planet.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In other words, even though you've spent more than 15 seconds pushing against, at any time, you can start a whole new trend, you see. Imagine writing books and coming back as your own great-grandchild and finding that book in the attic and saying, ooh, this feels good, so that at the age of 3 or 4 you start integrating it rather than waiting until you're 30 or 40. You see what we're getting at? You cannot imagine the joyful experience that is to be experienced upon this physical planet. In other words, whether you stay in this body and experience it or whether you are reborn in the body of another and experience it, there is infinite, fantastic joy and expression of growth coming forth on this planet and others. In other words, it is enormously wonderful, that which is our future.
We have 4 minutes of future on tape.
We are excited about what is before you because we are knowing that large blocks of resistance have already been dealt with just in the little bit of time we've been talking. But that's not the part we're most excited about. What we are most excited about is that without exception, you now have a tool to continue to lower your own level of resistance. In other words, if tomorrow every bit of the resistance that you had when you walked in here the other day came back, it wouldn't matter because now you know what to do about it. And it is our expectation that you're going to fluctuate. Some days a little more resistant than others, some subjects a lot more resistance than others. But in every day, as you realize that your work is to lower your level of resistance, which just means talk to yourself about this thing that's making you feel bad until you don't feel so bad. You are becoming those light beings that you're talking about. You are becoming those ascended beings that you are talking about. You are becoming those fulfillers of your life's purpose in the way that you have always intended. There is not a moment of your day that Abraham and your inner being are not aware of you and what you want. And we are not alone. There are masses within non-physical that you would describe and we acknowledge are pure positive energy beings who are infinitely aware of you and everything you want now and everything you have ever wanted. And we are all standing by, giving you our full attention, and in the moment that you lower your level of resistance, your awareness of our presence within your experience may be known. Not because we are asserting ourselves into your experience, but because we are all in this together. Because you are extensions of that which we are. Because you are the leading edge of that which we are, and when your valve is open and your resistance is down, we all experience the good times rolling. If your valve is closed and you are not allowing it, we do not feel resentful of you. We just flow through someone whose valve is open. In other words, you don't owe us or anybody anything. Please yourself in this. It's the best way of going about it. In other words, as you are doing it with the simple intent of allowing the energy that is you to flow, the fulfillment of all that we are will be manifest. Have fun with all of this. Be easy about it. Relax. You're all working much too hard at this. You have nothing to overcome. It's just a matter of softly and gently relaxing and allowing who you are to be. Who you are is not a muscle spasm. Who you are is not a discomfort knee. Who you are is not an argument with your sister. In other words, every time something less than good that happens, it's just not who you are. So just stop and say, that's not who I am. Who I am is... And as you remind yourself who you are, you achieve that vibrational point of attraction, and the entire universe then responds to who you are.
About 5 seconds.
We have enjoyed this interaction immensely. There is great love here for you. We are complete. Ooh, now what?
Yes.